guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the things I wish I would have known about the 4th trimester of pregnancy. If you're like me, you're probably like, I didn't know there was a 4th trimester of pregnancy. Surprise, there is. And that's my first thing that I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known that there actually is a 4th trimester of pregnancy. We don't normally hear about the 4th trimester of pregnancy, or at least that using that terminology as something that applies to the mother's journey. 4th trimester applies to the 12 weeks or 3 months that your little baby is now out of the womb and in the world. So yeah, it wasn't until I was pregnant that I even heard of the 4th trimester term being used, being thrown around. I think obviously we all heard of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd trimester, but I was really surprised when I heard of the 4th trimester and that was a thing as well. So apparently the term 4th trimester was coined by Dr. Harvey Karp, who is super famous for his book Happiest Baby on the Block and for creating the SNOO, which is a huge favorite among sleep-deprived parents out there. Dr. Karp has said that if it were up to babies, they would stay in the womb for a few more months, probably like maybe 12 to 14 months instead of 9 to 10, but that they're born because their brains are so big and that they wouldn't fit through the birth canal if they got any bigger. And so we should treat our newborn babies less as the babies during the 4th trimester and more as like fetuses outside of the womb. And so Dr. Karp's whole thing is about creating an environment for your baby that mimics your womb. And so creating all of these circumstances either in your bedroom or in your baby's bedroom that really mimic their life inside your uterus. I thought that was so interesting because before I had a baby and before I had lived through the entire like newborn stage, the only exposure that I had with newborns was via movies and TV shows, and it all looks so simple and the babies sleep so peacefully in their little cribs or in their cots, and they're usually in a bedroom that doesn't have blackout curtains and doesn't have a noise machine going. And it's not until you start reading a little bit more into it and have newborns of your own or talk to people who have had babies, they start to realize like, wait a minute, yeah, we do have to create an environment that mimics the womb, the darkness, the coolness, the sounds. That does really help a lot of infants during the 4th trimester. Next thing I wish I would have known is that the 4th trimester can easily become, when looking back, the hardest trimester of all the trimesters, which is hard to believe because of how brutal and long for a lot of people the 1st trimester is. Now, I didn't really have a very hard 1st trimester during my pregnancy with my son. I was nauseous and tired, but it wasn't as overwhelming and as hard as it is for some women. And so this isn't to say for everyone that the 4th trimester is going to be hard, but at least for me, when looking back, oh my gosh, the 4th trimester was definitely the hardest trimester. Not only was I recovering from a pretty intense labor and delivery experience where I had an episiotomy and a 4th degree tear, but I was also struggling with figuring out breastfeeding, and my son didn't like sleep. He didn't like to sleep. So he was up every 90 minutes to 2 hours, and it was so brutal. It was so brutal. And if he weren't like as cute as he is now, and if we didn't have as strong as a bond as we do now, then it would be hard for me to commit to more kids, just knowing that what we went through is even a possibility. So I don't say that to scare you or overwhelm you if you're pregnant for the 1st time. It's just to keep in mind, like, I thought for sure once my baby was born, like, yeah, we'll have some hardships, and yeah, like, sure, sleepless nights, but you don't really understand what that is until you're in it. And I also wish I would have just been a little more better prepared on some of the things that I touched on before about like keeping your environment very like uterus-like, because we did not have blackout curtains, we didn't have a sound machine from the get-go. And I think just creating that environment, now granted we were all living in one room at my parents', so like it wasn't quite as easy for us to figure that out as maybe it would have been had we had our own space like we do now. But a little bit of advice and something to keep in mind is that time after baby is born can be really hard. So like bring on all the help you can. If people offer to help or drop off some food, definitely take them up on those things. It'll just make that period of time a little bit easier. The very last thing that I wish I would have known is that it could take a while to bond with your baby, and that that's okay. Again, when the only thing you have to reference are movies or TV shows or fiction books, it can be really hard to compare your real life experience to the glamour of what you've seen in the media. And I really felt that way in the beginning. Like, I really felt like, this doesn't feel as glamorous as I thought it was going to be. Even watching other people's experiences on YouTube, there's this element of like disassociation sometimes, and this feeling of like, well, why do they make it look so easy, and why does it look like they are just head over heels in love with their baby, and I'm not feeling that same way right away. And it's okay. I think it's really important, especially in the beginning, to monitor how you're feeling, to have someone on board with you, whether that be your spouse or your partner, or maybe a parent or a friend who can be there and do like emotional checkups with you. And then just to know and to give yourself some grace for those first few weeks, and just to know that like, this is a new being, this is a new person. And for a lot of humans, you don't connect with someone until you've experienced things with them. Like, you don't just meet someone one day and then automatically be in love with them or automatically feel like you're best friends. Like, you have to have some experiences with them. And that was like one of the best pieces of advice I ever had, because I kept that in the back of my mind during that 4th trimester period of time, and just reminded myself like, yeah, like, of course I will do anything for this baby. And my mom instincts were really, really strong, and I did feel like a lot of care and love for this baby, but I didn't feel that like attachment, and I didn't feel like we had really bonded. And that's because we hadn't really experienced anything together. And once you get through those first few weeks, everyone's gonna be different. You might bond with your baby the moment they come out. You might bond with them a few days later, a few weeks later, a few months later. I just think it's really important not to put yourself down or feel guilty if you don't feel that bond right away. All right, guys, and those are all the things that I wish I would have known about the 4th trimester. If there's anything that you wish you would have known about the 4th trimester, any like tips and tricks for getting through the 4th trimester, it can be really hard. It's a really hard like postpartum window of time where you're just trying to figure things out and trying to figure out your baby. If there's any advice that you can give, definitely leave it down in the comments for all the new mamas out there, or second time. I mean, listen, hopefully I'll be having another baby sometime soon. I'm still gonna need like all the advice I can take. So please leave that down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.